Hi, I'm Michelle Hurst, and I'm a graduate student in developmental psychology at Boston College with Sarah Cordes. This is our video abstract for the paper coming out in Developmental Science called 1, 2, 3s and ABCs, Developmental Shifts in Logarithmic to Linear Responding Reflect Fluency with Sequence Values. This paper looks at performance on the number line placement task, originally developed by Siegler and Offer. And this task looks something like this. There's going to be a line between two endpoints, with the small endpoint on the left and the large endpoint on the right. Children and adults would be given a target number and asked to place that number where it belongs on the line. For example, children might be given the number 5 and asked where it belongs, with the correct answer being in the middle. Many researchers have used this task to show that it's predictive of math ability. In particular, performance on this task is correlated with performance on other estimation tasks and on magnitude comparison tasks. And it's also been used to develop pretty successful educational interventions. So there seems to be something really important about this task that's predictive of math competency. What's less clear is why it's so predictive. Siegler and colleagues suggest that it's predictive because it provides direct information about children's underlying representation of number. And using this assumption, they've provided data that suggests that children's underlying representation of number go through a qualitative change over development. Early on, children place their values in a logarithmic distribution over the line, while older children tend to place the values in a more linear distribution over the line. Siegler and colleagues have taken this behavioral data to suggest a developmental trend in the underlying representation of number. So over time, children will shift their representation from a primarily logarithmic one to a primarily linear one. However, in this paper, we provide data against the assumption that this task provides direct information about the underlying representation of number. Instead, we suggest that performance on this task is dependent on familiarity with the magnitude of the endpoints, and fluency with the ordered sequence, which is not necessarily numerical or magnitude-based in nature. To test our first hypothesis, we provided adults with a non-standard number line placement task. Here, non-standard endpoints are endpoints that do not end in 0, which are typically the endpoints used in these tasks, like 100 or 1000. So, adults received a task with endpoints of 1639 and 2,897, as well as two control tasks, one with standard endpoints but a similar magnitude, so 2,000 to 3,000, and another with standard endpoints but with a similar range. Our results show that adults were logarithmic on the non-standard endpoint task, despite being linear on the similar magnitude and similar range tasks with standard endpoints, meaning endpoints that end in 0. So data from our adults suggests that we can induce logarithmic performance, but that this is not indicative of their underlying representation of number, since they're linear on the same range and on the same magnitude of target values, but when we provide standard endpoints, so when at least one of the endpoints ends in 0. We can apply an analogous argument to the typical data seen with children, in that when they're logarithmic on 0 to 1000, it may not be necessarily that their underlying representation of the numbers from 0 to 1000 are logarithmic, but instead that they're less familiar with that endpoint of 1000. We tested the second part of our hypothesis using an alphabet placement task with children. So the alphabet is an ordered sequence, but there's no underlying or inherent magnitude in the letters of the alphabet. Children were given the same setup, but with endpoints of A and Z, and then asked to place a target letter where it belongs on the line. In this task, we see that younger children, aged 6 to 7, respond logarithmically, while older children, aged 10 to 11, respond more linearly, and the children in the middle are showing a mix of behavior. So we're showing the exact same developmental trend in the alphabet placement task, which is an ordered sequence with no inherent magnitude, as is seen in the number placement task, suggesting that the pattern of responding likely does not reflect the underlying representation of magnitude. So although the number line placement task seems to be indicative of something important, which is predictive of math competency, it probably isn't the underlying representation of number, but instead something about different aspects of the task, like familiarity with the magnitude of the endpoints and fluency with the ordered sequence, which is not necessarily numerical or magnitude-based in nature. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy the paper that you're about to read. If you have any questions or comments, I look forward to hearing from you.